This is Kevin Pruitt with Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Ben Kennedy. Ben, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
So, Ben, can you share a little bit about your background with our listeners?
Of course, yeah. So I live in Sydney, Australia, which is, as you said, a very long flight away from yourself. I have one half sister who lives in the UK. She has her own sort of, entrepreneurial endeavors as well. My family is a bunch of, people who love starting their own businesses. My dad, he's a financial advisor. And my mum, she owned her own catering business, and now she's got her fingers in a lot of pies. She's got a bed and breakfast, a restaurant. She loves horse racing as well. She's also been helping me out a fair bit because she's got a ton of items. She used to have an events business. So yeah, I used to work as an auditor before I sort of realized that wasn't the path for me. I just absolutely love entrepreneurship and working on my own thing, similar to my parents, because I guess I always grew up with it.
Sure.
And yeah.
So tell me this. So was there a moment when you were growing up that you just kind of thought in the back of your mind that said, I think I'm going to have to work for myself because I'm probably not wired to work for somebody else?
Yeah. I think when I was like a young kid, my dad always told the story about how I sort of always had this entrepreneurial, I guess, vision. Like I did always see myself as owning my own business. I think when you're a kid though, you see all the risks and everything that can go wrong. But I think it was when I was about 16, I was in about, year 10, year 11 in high school. And I realized, yeah, I really want to run my own business. I think I started doing business studies, and I learned a little bit more about what an entrepreneur was. And I thought, you know what, like, yeah, why not? And yeah, I guess that was the main reason why I decided. And then yeah, I had a number of different business ideas, and then I realized, what I wanted to do was something that would help the world. So that's sort of something that I've stuck with. So yeah.
So was your company that you've started now, is it the first thing you ever tried as you're kind of on your own, or did you have some other things that you kind of did, maybe even say mid to late teens, heading in? Because I mean, you told me you're an old 21 right now, so you don't have a long track record there. So
Yeah, no, I don't have a whole lot of experience, I guess. You're not wrong there. But when I was a kid, yeah, I used to do, just little things like my family would take me over to Bali. And I knew that, people at school, there were a few things they loved. They loved Bintang singlets. They loved Vans shoes, and they loved sunglasses. So, I just put a Facebook post out there, and people would message me and say, hey, I'd love to get a Bintang singlet off you, and all this sort of things. Obviously they don't have to pay to go all the way to Bali. And then yeah, we'd buy it at $15, for Vans, and then resell it for 20. So there was things that I used to do. Buy chips from Woolies and then resell them, and do like little things like that. But yeah, I guess I sort of did those things without even knowing.
Sure.
Like I didn't even think that would be something that would lead to me becoming an entrepreneur. And I still don't really look at it that way. It was just like I just sort of saw an opportunity and thought I'd go down the what was there to lose? Otherwise I got a bunch of these cool Vans or cool Bintang singlets, so I wasn't really at a loss at all. So yeah, I guess those were little ideas that I sort of had when I was growing up, and yeah.
I absolutely. I mean, that is unmistakable, the genetic disposition of an entrepreneur. You see an opportunity, you take advantage of an opportunity, you kind of find the itch that somebody has, and you help them scratch it. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, I love the way you looked away and you were kind of like going, yeah, I guess I was an entrepreneur because I would sell candy, and I would go to Woolies and I would break open the bag, and I would buy the big bag and I would sell it individually and just, sunglasses, whatever that thing is. So
It's too funny because yeah, it was so strange when I was a kid. Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that because I just had fun. It felt like when you're, when you have a job, when you're working, like you can't have fun when you're doing that sort of thing. And I was just like, oh, I really enjoy this. So I just, I didn't think that it was entrepreneurial at all. That wasn't even my mindset. I was just like, oh, this might make me a couple bucks put in the bank. So
right.
yeah.
So walk us through kind of the transition of Gecko. So how did it come about? What was the kind of the backstory? I mean, did you just have this dream one night that, hey, we need to rent our stuff that's in the garage there? What was the
Yeah.
kind of the genesis?
Well, to be honest, I had a few different startup ideas, just, as you do, but they didn't really make a positive impact to the world. And I remember I went over to New Zealand because I have background in New Zealand as well. And yeah, I was with my cousin, and I asked her, where am I sleeping tonight? Because I knew that my mum had the bed, and she said, oh, I got an air mattress from someone down the road. And I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, what would you have done if you didn't know that he had one? And she sort of said, oh, I guess, I would have bought one. And the first thing I thought was like, what a waste of money. Like, and I just knew, I sort of thought back to how is this relevant to me? And I went to Falls Festival, which is like not as good as Coachella or anything like that. But yeah, it's a festival where you go camping and whatnot. And we bought tents. We bought, gazebos. We bought tables, chairs, which is like for all, I think, 8 of us, it was like $600.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. You know what I mean? So I just thought, okay, I'll do a bit of research and sort of see if there's anything else like that out there. And, sort of realized, no, there's nothing, absolutely nothing in Australia. There was this one sort of marketplace that had like 20 listings. And I was like, well, that's not going to help anyone. So yeah, that's sort of what I did. And yeah, went down that route.
So walk us through kind of the launch. I mean, it's one thing to have the idea. It's another thing to say, okay, how do I build this online, app, or how do I build the marketplace, the digital marketplace, and how do we take payments, and how do we keep people from stealing stuff, and how do we, protect people with insurance, and all the things you have to kind of think through. So walk us through that initial planning stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for the first 3 months, it was really, it took me a long time to realize I'm really going hard. Because I remember I told my friends, and and the reception I got from them wasn't very positive. Just because, it was just like I just told them about the idea, and they just sort of were silent for like 5 seconds, and I was just like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't that good an idea anyway. So yeah, I did a lot of validation. I put a lot of time and effort. I mean, when I thought of the idea was January 2018, and when we officially launched was September 2019. So that's like, a year and 9 months of really working on whether this is about like a valid business idea. So yeah, pretty much from the outset, I did a lot of research, saw whether there's a real need for this. So I didn't really know where to start because, as you say, I was very inexperienced. I didn't really know what to do. So I just thought, okay, do I get the product out there first, or what do I do? But luckily, I was doing a subject at university, which was innovation and entrepreneurship. So I just went straight to, after obviously discussing with my parents, because they're very much in the space. I spoke to my lecturer, and she said, "You got to put out a survey because you don't even know if people actually want this yet." And I said, "Oh no, I'm pretty sure people will want this." And she's like, "No. Everyone says that." And I was like, "Oh, that's actually a really fair point." So yeah, I literally just put out this survey, sent it to as many people as I could. I think we ended up getting over 100 responses, and yeah, it was actually really positive. Which I was really, really nervous. wasn't sure what people were going to say. And the best part about it was, I think, the lessons that I learned. So one thing that I learned is that, straight away you need to be getting people's email addresses when you're doing all these surveys, right? Because I had 110 people that completed this survey, and then I had no email list, and I was like, oh no, because people were saying that they were interested, and then I couldn't let them know that this is actually going to be a thing. So I was like, oh damn, that was that's a huge lesson that I've learned. If I do ever going on to something else, that's like the first thing I'm doing when I'm putting out surveys. I did a whole lot of interviews as well. So just speaking to people and just sort of taking it and understanding, you know, whether people, because obviously everyone wants to help you, but a lot of the time people will just want to be nice. So you just need to filter out whether, you know, they are just trying to be nice and, you know, let you down gently or whatever. And it's just the questions you ask, which I thought was really interesting. So at the beginning, you know, I thought, oh, qualitative analytics, you know, that's the way to go. We've got to be interviewing, we've got to be doing all that sort of thing. And then I sort of realized actually the quantitative analytics is probably a lot more accurate, because then you can tell, you know, what people are actually doing, because they can say, oh, you know, I only go on TikTok, you know, 1 hour a day. And then you look at their phone and they're on it, you know, 4 hours a day, you know, and that's not lying. They probably think that they're telling the truth and they don't even realize, but that's just an example of, I guess, the little things that we learned. So to be honest, I just tried to speak to as many intelligent people as I could, that were a lot smarter than me, and just learn from them and just take everything on board and always be open to new opportunities. So, you know, I thought that what I needed was a co-founder, but what I really needed to do was validate this business idea. Sure. And then the rest would come, you know. So obviously I was very lucky to have this auditing job, which literally paid for everything. So, you know, when I was paying for, you know, people to build the website and all that sort of thing, that's, you know, all that money that I earned was going straight back into the business and whatnot. So while a lot of people, you know, going out and spending, you know, a lot of money while they're out on a Saturday night, yeah, I guess all my money was really being spent. Don't get me wrong, you know, I'd have a few good nights here and there, but, you know, a lot of that money was being spent and being put back in.
So, I mean, it sounds like to me that you pretty much bootstrapped this. I mean, from the beginning. So have you gotten to the point now that you have raised outside funding, or is it?
Yeah, so we're actually just locking that in, like, as we speak. So we're just doing a pre-seed round. And the reason for that is, I think Australia is very different to America. Australia is a lot harder to get funding. Because, you know, there's a lot, like the startup scene over here just isn't at the quality that America's is. It will be soon, maybe in, you know, 10, 20 years. But right now we are quite a bit behind, for the time being. So the whole process of, you know, raising funds is extremely lengthy. So one thing that we really wanted to do was get this money on board and get it quickly, because our main focus was growth. So, you know, I know one of my mentors, Daniel, he was always saying, you know, what you've got to be going for is 10% week on week growth. And that's how you know you're in the right direction or whether you're not. It turns out that I think our week on week growth has been something around 300% or something like that. I think that was the third quarter. So, sorry, as in first quarter of this year. So that was at the end of March, which also includes the coronavirus, which took us down. So I think before coronavirus, we were around the 400% sort of mark. I think that was probably close to 450% week on week. So yeah, we were skyrocketing. And then obviously this has sort of come along, which has been a bit of a shame. But yeah, I guess that's sort of been our goals, and we've just been looking at our key metrics to improve and get to the next level.
So you and I are going to hop on a lift here. We're going to go up 10 floors. You got 45 seconds to give me your best elevator pitch on Gecko. Tell me what it does and who it serves.
Yeah, of course. So Gecko is, you know, a rental marketplace that helps people make extra cash off items that are gathering dust in their home by renting them out. So if you have a spare speaker, drone, DJ decks, wedding chairs, deck chairs, you're able to, you know, hire these items out and start making some money off them. So, you know, we not only do we help people make money, but we also help people rent what they want when they want it. And we're looking to change consumers to sharers for the sake of the environment.
So how do you like I think of in terms of like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, like how do you protect the person that is loaning this equipment out or renting this equipment out? So do you encourage people, do they have to meet? Do you tell them to meet at a neutral site? Do you have people give their address out, their house address, so people can actually come to their house to get the stuff. Or so in the States, that's pretty dangerous to do that, to post your address. So there's a lot of encouragement to meet it in a public place, a parking lot or something like that. So how do you handle that within your service?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing from the outset that we got from the survey, so I believe when we first put out the survey, we said, would you be interested in, and then I gave like my little one-line pitch. And then I think we got about between 60 and 70%, somewhere around there. I think it was around 63% of people that said, yeah, I guess I'd be keen to do this. And then the question after, we asked if there was a bond or security system in place, would this entice you to list? And that, sorry, it wasn't entice, it was, would you use this?
Yeah.
And that 63% jumped up to 89%.
Mm-hmm.
Something we realized from the outset, because I asked myself, would I use this? And it's like, I remember just saying, no, I wouldn't. And I thought, why wouldn't I use this? And I said, security. Well, that's what we got to do in order to get we've got to be putting in a security system. So that's something that we've had a huge focus on. So one thing that we did is just trying to do whatever we could. And to be honest, there was a bit of looking into Airbnb, how they did things and all this sort of stuff. So first things first, we put in a bond. That was probably the easiest, thing to do. Not only it's the best thing as well, because lenders are in full control of the bond, how much and how little. And it's just, I guess, about hand-holding them to know, okay, this is probably a little bit too much, because otherwise someone just might as well buy it. And all this is probably a little bit too small, because the whole purpose of the bond is, yes, we can protect in other ways, but we just really don't want to go down that rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
Right.
So not that, but we use Stripe. So we love Stripe. Stripe's so great. So one thing that Stripe does is they're able to get, where these people live. And we can see whether this fits in with our vetting system. So you have to put your address in order to sign up to Gecko and hire out items. And we can see, whether this sort of fits in with each other. And as well as that, we have their credit card details. So we're able to charge them for, people coming late or do anything like that. So far, we've been relatively lucky. I think we've had, 4 or 5 accidents so far. And people know, this is going to get taken out of the bond. We haven't had any issues. We had that, which was a great learning curve for us. To, remunerate, all the people that were involved, and then, all this insurance stuff and whatnot. So yeah, that's how, and we put that in on our homepage. It's one of the most important things about, our vetting system, our bond, Stripe, and everything that we do in order to protect our users. So in terms of, going to people's places, we leave that to the lender and what they feel comfortable in doing and all that sort of thing. So one thing, it really depends on the person. So I personally would recommend a user, if they are a lender, is to, try and, not do as much work as possible. Because for me personally, I'm really lazy. So, I know.
Obviously you're not. That's right.
Oh, you know what I mean? So, it's just about, you can sort of chill. A borrower can come to you and do all that sort of thing. But as well as that, we do offer a delivery system, because we realize, there is a bit of a friction point there, because you got to go all the way to their house and you got to drop it all the way back. And we thought, hey, extra revenue stream.
Yep.
So yeah, we trialed that out in January, and it worked really, really well for us. So it took us, because we take 15% from the lender and then 5% from the borrower. And then it took our percentages up like quite a fair bit. And not only that, but it's our gross merchandise volume, our average revenue, and all that sort of thing. So instead of earning 20%, it's actually closer to around that, 30%.
Sure. Yeah, and I would think they're generally fairly close together. I mean, the borrower and the lender are probably geographically fairly close together, because I mean they have to be. They have to be.
Local approach is so important for marketplaces, especially. I mean, you look at all the amazing marketplaces. Lenny Rachitsky writes about it you can sort of knuckle in product wise, but I'd say all the best ones, you know, your Ubers, your Airbnbs, or all these sorts of, you know, incredible sort of sharing economy marketplaces, they've all done really well just by going with a hyper-local approach.
Right. So when exactly was this service launched?
Yeah, so we launched in September last year, 9th of September. I'll remember it forever. And yeah, it definitely wasn't perfect when we launched. You know what I mean? It was a minimum viable product, and we'd sort of ironed out all the kinks. But yeah, we launched, and I remember I got up in the morning at around 6 a.m. and you know was messaging all these people about put your listings on Gecko and all that sort of stuff. And then I went to sleep. I think I haven't done this too much, but I actually I think it was the first time ever that I went to sleep, while I was like on the computer, working, or I was on the phone, messaging people to go on to Gecko. So that's never happened. I think it's only happened 2 or 3 times. But yeah, no, it was incredibly exciting. And yeah, it was just all about, looking at, growth, and what the customer really needs and wants. So we were lucky enough to be an accelerator at the time, the Turbo Traction Lab, which is in Australia, where we've met a ton of amazing mentors. And yeah, it was really great for us because we could work on, obviously the tech side had so many kinks when we started, but it worked. You could go on to our platform, you could hire out an item, which is, the whole point of an MVP. Yep. So, that's sort of how we got started. And obviously we worked out, okay, that's bad, that's good, that's really, really bad. We need to work on that now. This affects sales, so that needs to be prioritized and all that sort of thing.
Did you build this like on, say, WordPress with like some modules, or was this just like completely from scratch? You hired a web developer and he just created it?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So I probably spent a grand amount of my time trying to find a co-founder and just getting as much tech help as I could, because I can't code. I can do the hello world, your basic sort of HTML
log entry. That's right.
Yeah, that's it. But no, I can't code. I wouldn't want myself to code because or do any of that sort of thing, because that's just not where my strengths are. Yeah. So yeah, I look to sort of hire people that were better. So I guess the general consensus of everyone that I spoke to, they said, look, you could go down WordPress, but the amount of tech debt that you're going to have in the long run, if you actually see this sort of working out, would be too great. Now, to be honest, I think that's up for a debate. So yep. I wouldn't tell anyone to code from scratch, and I wouldn't tell anyone to go onto WordPress or ShareTribe or what have you. I think it really just depends on where you're at. It just so happened we put this post into a Facebook group, and the people we met with were so genuine, they were so honest, that are our, software developers now. And we just thought, hey, I can really trust these guys, and we can still really trust them. They were genuine, they were honest, and we thought, okay, I'm happy to do what they say, and obviously we spoke to a bunch of people, and we got a few different recommendations and all that sort of thing. But I think in the long run that will be the best decision that we made.
Yeah. You mentioned it just a few minutes ago about this exponential growth that you were experiencing, and then all of a sudden, boom, COVID-19, the coronavirus hit, and virtually, I mean, for the first time in the history of mankind, it's like, we hit the global pause button. It's like everything like stopped, like shut down, no schools, no, businesses are shut down, restaurants closed, transportation's closed, no travel. So I want to really kind of hone in on that, as far as, because I mean, our other listeners, that are going to listen to this podcast, they're dealing with this in their own context. And I'm just really curious. So what are some of the things that you've experienced as a obviously an early stage startup founder, and how have you kind of coped with those? How are you dealing with those with you, with your team, with, clients? I mean, kind of walk us through just the kind of the rough waters that COVID-19 can cause a business to have.
yeah, no, it was something that it's hard because we were expecting it like more than anything. You know, we're in the space and all this sort of thing where it's getting thrown around all the time. I think it's just one of those things that it's very hard to, I guess, deal with. And I guess I think there's got to be that sense of realization, because there's a difference between like, oh yeah, this is going to impact us, and it's like, oh, we really need to do something about this. And I think when that really clicked, things started getting into gear. And
Yeah.
it's just about having that realization as quick as possible that pretty much makes or breaks businesses, in my opinion. So, you know, there was, I won't lie, I remember this one day where like, our Prime Minister was like, you know, businesses need to innovate and all this sort of thing. I was like, he never uses that word or anything. And I was like, I was only thinking about small businesses and whatnot, you know, about, you know, all the things that they needed to do. And I just had this sort of bit of a sulk where I was just like, you know, like, oh, but, you know, what we're doing is starting to work. It's starting to get flight and whatnot. And it's just coming to that realization where it's just like, hey, something needs to be done about this and needs to be done ASAP. Like, let's go, let's start brainstorming, let's get the team together and let's start moving. So one thing that we sort of did was, because we had a number of items that are on high liquidity marketplaces in order to grow our own, because ours is so much better. So one thing that we sort of realized is certain items were getting quite a lot of you know, people responding to them. And we were like, okay, well, it's actually not a bad thing that we haven't kept things broad. We have sort of stiffened it down, but what we stiffened it down to was events, and events are closed. There's no event.
Yep.
So 2 months or so, or well, at the time it was 3 or 4 months.
Right.
So we're, you know, this is a bit of an issue. So what we realized is, okay, what are people saying to hire, and why are they doing it? So number one was DJ decks. Now, DJ decks are very, very expensive. So that was something that we were like, okay, we need these as much as possible. So we started putting ads out, and we realized like a lot of people, this was starting to pick up quite a bit of traction. So we're like, okay, why are they doing it? And we spoke to them, and they were like, because we need to, you know, not be crazy while we're at home. So I was like, okay, perfect. Then we had a look at other items and why were they getting hired out? Xboxes, PlayStation, guitars, you know, musical instruments, you know, keyboards, like all these sorts of things. And we're like, okay, so people need to keep busy while they're doing this, and they want to learn, they want to teach themselves how to DJ.
Sure.
Or all this sort of thing. So it was just realizing that, going, okay, people don't want to go stir crazy. Let's start putting that in all our marketing content and all that sort of thing. So it was just, I guess, having that realization as soon as possible that a slight pivot needs to be made. That's the most important thing. Then, as well as that, because we have good, bad, ugly emails to, you know, investors, mentors, all these people, and we got sent over this huge list about what's doing really well at the moment and what's not. So obviously stuff like gym equipment is doing really, really well at the moment, whereas cameras are not doing so well. And we've seen that in the amount of people that are messaging on things. So we realized, okay, now let's start getting the supply up. Portable monitors, for example, like that, like everyone was trying to get portable monitors because people are trying to work from home. So we were just thinking, okay, we need to try and get this supply. How can we get this supply? How can we get it in bulk? And just working out things in this way in order to stay alive, because at the end of the day, you know, we are relatively lucky that we haven't raised, you know, like all this money, because if you had, your runway would have gone from 9 months to, you know, literally 4 weeks.
Sure.
And there would be so many startups out there that's happened to.
Yeah.
And, you know, I spoke to my own mentor who literally had that happen. And he said, you know, the most important thing is staying alive during this time, and just having enough runway to, and whether that is, and unfortunately, as we've seen through the statistics, you know, it is, you know, unemployment rate has gone through the roof, and that's because businesses are realizing, hey, we need runway in order to survive, because, you know, cutting 100 jobs is bad, but cutting, you know, 1,000 jobs, that's really bad. And it's sort of just making a decision, because, you know, there is a great opportunity that so many, you know, huge businesses are going to go under, and it's just reduced as much as possible.
You know, it's amazing when you look at the different types of businesses and how they, you kind of like prognosticate how they're going to be able to come out of this on the other side. And I see a business like yours, this almost could be like a blessing in disguise. So, as you see people come out this, money's going to be a little tighter on an individual basis. People may be more inclined to rent something than to go buy it. They may want to exchange or borrow, whatever those types of things are. So, not that we want this to happen so our businesses will increase, but there are opportunities to be made in difficult circumstances, and it sounds like to me, I mean, you outlined a couple of those, like, people needed monitors. So we had to go find a source for these monitors to really kind of build the inventory in our marketplace. So they would be there type thing. So you don't carry any inventory yourself, right? This is all kind of contracted, or do you actually carry inventory as well on the books so that you kind of rent out your own stuff as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've got my little Bluetooth speaker.
No. I'm talking about from a business, like you got a
We,
warehouse somewhere. Yeah.
no, we don't. It's the exact same sort of business model as Uber. Uber don't own any cars. Airbnb don't own any houses. It's the same sort of thing. There's a few things. Obviously, like I'm a user of Gecko. There are things that I would put off of my own for Gecko because I see the value in it. But I
Right.
think that's the most important thing is, I guess, like creating a lot of value for customers, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about the customer. So, I definitely say that. Does that answer your question? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the idea that's, it is like, we still use that phrase. It is the Uber of, whatever. This is the Uber of
Yeah.
the rental marketplace.
We do try and not say that. But at the end of the day, one thing that having that familiarity is something that we've found is sort of important. Particularly for security, because a lot of people
Yeah.
go, oh, but what if this happens? And it's like, well, Uber, Airbnb, we just use the same things as they do. They've sort of built this platform out for us, and we've sort of piggybacked off them and the things that they've done really well, which is their security.
Right.
So that's something. If you're able to trust them, why would you not be able to trust us? I think that's the main sort of thing. And okay, that's a really good point. So we're only going to be the second best Airbnb. We're only going to be the second best Uber. That's not what we're trying to look to be. We're trying to be the best version of Gecko.
Right.
So that's one thing that we try and have the mentality for. But at the same time, if it's needed, you gotta, I guess, to help people understand what you're doing, it works. So.
I mean, I really appreciate the way you kind of framed your startup, and even, I mean, in a very short period of time. I mean, you've learned so much, just from the kind of this, as the Americans would say, the school of hard knocks, just kind of street education. But if there was one thing, as we wrap up today, if there was one thing that you wish you knew back in September that you now know, would there be anything you said, man, I wish I knew that in August of 2019? So when we launched in September, it would have made life so much easier for the first, 8 months of existence or something like that. Is there anything you can just think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, look, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of things, but validation and spending so much time and effort on the building blocks for your business is so crucial, in my opinion. I think that, because I've seen so many businesses, because I'm in, incubators and startup hubs and all that sort of thing. I've seen so many businesses that have not validated what they're doing, and as a result have, they've lost so much money. They've wasted a whole lot of time, and it's just a disaster. And you know what? The chances of you being onto something is very, very high, but as we know, the startup rate is, I think it's 90% fail within their first.
Yeah.
It's so high. So I guess it's just finding that out and being able to pivot as well and taking on feedback and just being like, okay, like, customers do not want this. What, where is the value that we can provide them? So it's number one, I guess, focusing on the customer and your why. Simon Sinek has an amazing YouTube video about and number two is just validate and just ask, just start speaking to customers, know more about, you know, your customer last week than you did this week, and keep that going, and just keep those, just keep going, and stay persistent, and work hard, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing the amount of data though that you're going to generate through your marketplace, and that absolutely, the more data you have, the better you're going to be able to hone in on, you know, who your ideal client is, what their pain points are, what they like to rent, how long they want to keep it, you know, all, you know, what's the kind of the price elasticity, what's the, you know, what's the tipping point of the of cost versus, you know, benefit of, you know, within that. But and I just really appreciate you just kind of walking us through that, walking us through not only the just the business itself, but also walking us through the, you know, how you're dealing with you know, coronavirus or COVID-19 right now. So Ben, is there anything that we haven't touched on you just kind of want to wrap up with today, and tell people where the best place to find you online is after that?
Yeah, of course. So we're on all your social medias. Our handle is Gecko Oz. So that's Gecko AUS. Our website is www.gecko.rent. And yeah, no, that's everything about us. If you ever want to speak to me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. I think my link's Benjamin Thomas Kennedy. That's my full name. So if you ever have any questions in regards to startups or anything like that, I'm so happy to have a chat and try and help you out. So yeah.
Okay, well, I got to ask one more question now. So you're in Australia, but do you have like this world domination, you know, in mind that you're going to go? It's New Zealand next. It's, you know, it's.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, that's the whole reason you get into startups is you change the world. So yeah, we're as I said, we're starting off with a hyper-local approach, mainly in Sydney. However, we have made a few sales in Perth, which is in Western Australia. Yeah. Currently, we're East Coast. You know, a couple of sales in Brisbane, Melbourne, and whatnot. But yes, we want to get into the New Zealand market because it always gets missed because the size is quite small. But one thing that we're really looking into is, you know, high density populations. So places like Hong Kong, Tokyo. There's a few places in America as well. We need to do a little bit where, but you know, that's very much where our target market will be as well. You know, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, a few of those places which have high dense people that, you know, imagine if you could hire an item and it's through someone who's in the same building as you. Like how cool would it be, right? So I guess that's, you know, what we're looking to get into, and yeah, go from there.
Well, Ben, we're going to wrap up today, but we'll have to circle back with you in a couple of years, and you know, I may have to call your people to get to you by that time because you will have dominated the global rental space, you know, through Gecko Online. But Ben, thank you for just taking the time today and just sharing your story and just really helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Ben, have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.